Far too often, we don't give enough credit to the impact that sound has on our artistry. We don't give enough credit to the impact gear has on our personality. Over the last 35 years of my career, I've spent a lot of time at the piano chair, which we like to call playing mains. And if it's one thing I've learned, it's that playing the right gear is half the battle. Then the sound that that gear brings to the table is the other half. No question about it. Now, this is not a skill set conversation at all. This is a safe space conversation. This is the relationship between you and the gear you choose to play. Now, I've touched a lot of keyboards, MIDI grands, controllers, and I must say, Nord nailed it with the G series. The response, the playability, just the way it feels, this very genius triple pedal. And the icing on the cake is just the way it sounds. Because of that, I've created my own signature sound bank. And within this sound bank, there's a lot of things that will allow you to understand the way I think and the way I hear music and the way I want to be heard and the way I want my stories to be heard. My name is Daniel Weatherspoon. This is the Nord Grand 2, and this is my signature sound bank. Let's get into it. This is Boston Avenue. What makes this one special is the fact that we don't always, as pianists, separate the idea we hear. From the keyboardist, generally, the piano's all the way across the piano. The string is completely across the piano. And then we just kind of manipulate the volume of the two. But in my head, especially when creating this piece, it was important to me that the orchestration told its own story and the piano told its own story. Now that's hard to do on one board unless we use something that this board offers us, which is a crossfade. Now this is generally a feature that's on all of the Nord products, but it really works well here because it can determine how far I want the crossfade of the strings and the piano to marry. And then when it gets to the top half of the board, I can just go full piano. When I get to the lower half of the board, I can go full string. Hope you like this one. As a songwriter and artist, it's very important to me to find the right sound to help me tell a story. I wrote this song some years ago. It's called Thursday. Very emotional piece, very real piece to me. But it has two different dynamics. There's a very delicate and warm side to it, but then later on in the piece, it becomes just a little more aggressive. And to capture that, I decided to put two pianos together. It just helps make the song feel the way it's supposed to feel. And this is what I mean. This is the warmer side of the piece. Sounds beautiful, works well. But when it gets to the more intense part of the song, I needed something else. So we flipped to this. two together. This is Thursday. One of the things about producing records for me is seeing the finished product before you get to the end, right? And knowing the roles that every instrument is to play. Now, sometimes we don't detail them and find them fast enough, but we know where we want to be. We know where we want to get to. And unfortunately, we can't play those roles at the same time when developing things because the boards just aren't set up that way or patches aren't built that way. So I did this and a lot of the other sounds in this bank for my personal reasons of how do I accomplish what it is I'm trying to accomplish without having to take 20 takes and do 40 tracks until find it. So I can, if I'm hearing one thing and I want to marry it with something else, this particular patch, which is called Duet, gives me the opportunity to do that. On the lower half of the board, we put a guitar, acoustic guitar. On the top half of the board, we put a pad. This is what I mean. A great sounding EP is always necessary. It's always necessary. It's always a place for it. But just using it out the box sometimes just the easy way out. I wanted to go a little farther with mine. I did take a digital EP. I left this one flat. Only thing I did with this one is, instead of it being stereo, I used the unison feature and kind of made it a little more mono, and it kind of brought the sound a little closer. Then I took something else, and I had a lot of fun with this one. I added the panning effect to it, as well as a vibraphone effect to it, to just kind of give it a little shake and give it a little movement. Played with the EQ a lot, and I also added a little verb, which is, I'm a fan of the verbs on this board. And we kind of mixed the two together. This is called Wavey. I love a clav. Love a good sounding clav. It helps me fake like I'm a guitar player for a little while. You know, it gives me that kind of chunky, attack that you want to fill those spaces that you wouldn't get from a natural piano or organ. It's its own thing. Now, I've developed these sounds to kind of help you understand the way I think. Now, clavs can tend to be harsh on the ears. especially for mine. And in its raw state, I always like to add a little wah to it. Now, when it's in this state, generally, you can't apply it to other than this. So to make it a little more musical, a little more player-friendly, I added a couple more layers to it. I took the clav. For one, I added the wah to it. Then I turned around and added a little piano to it. Went a little farther than that. Took a little synth, added that to it. You hear it? It gives it that little bite, that extra notation you want to hear, just to fill it in. That's Clavish. Hope you like it. So I've created a sound called Tspoon. And a lot of you may know why that's very important to me. Now that name in itself is a very musical, very delicate, very emotional name and an identity. So I wanted to create something that reminds me of that. Something that will give me the full support I need of a piano, and then give me the intimacy of a string, and then give me the coolness of a choir. So we've created these layers to build this one sound. There's a feature here, that's one of my favorite features on the board actually, is the compressor feature, the comp feature. And it allows certain instrumentation to just come closer and give you a little more energy. So in order to create this, I started with the foundation. I started where it was most important. Simple. I just found the wonderful sounding piano. Added some verb to it. But then that wasn't enough. So I wanted to layer it with a string. Now, if you notice, it's kind of far off. It's not as direct as the piano is, but that's just something the board can give you. There's a dynamics feature on the board, as well as the comp feature on the board, as well as multiple room and verb options, where it just allows you to create this space. Now, the one thing I like about the dynamic feature is it can squeeze the sound to a particular realm within the, within the space window. So instead of everything being so wide, it just brings things a little closer. That way the piano can speak here and the strings can speak here. But then that still wasn't enough. So I wanted to offset that attack that the strings give you with a little choral. The combination of these three really reflect what Tspoon is. Let me show you what I mean. This particular sound captures the vision I had of a cover tune that I did. My intention was to take a very kind of raunchy tune and make it as musical and as friendly to listen to as possible. That was the thought process. So knowing what the thought was, the sound had to match it in order to help me paint that picture. So I took a piano, I added a little chorus to it, and oddly enough, I added a little tremolo to the piano, which kind of gave it a different kind of texture, and it did this. To support that, I just gave it some string elements, and again, play with the verbs, play with the dynamics, play with the compressor a lot, play with the mod features, and they just kind of help shape sounds a little more. That's Untitled. Now, there's a few sounds within this bank that were just for fun, meaning they won't necessarily work in real world application, but they do help me paint pictures or help me just have a good time at home in my studio and vibe and, you know, so forth and so forth. This is one of those sounds. This one is called acid piano. Now, the thing about this one is I took some of the effects and just played with them and had fun with them just to try to see what I would come up with. Now, I didn't necessarily have an idea of where I was going, but the board caused me to end up somewhere with this one. So I took two pianos. Let's break this down a little bit. A natural grand. What did I do to it? I added this spin effect. And if you can see a little closer, you just take the spin, you turn it on and off. There's also an amp feature on the board. You hear that? It just simulates that guitar amp kind of distortion, and you can play with how intense you want it to hit or not. I took another piano, did something completely opposite to this one. We added a phase to it. Not only did we add phase to it, we played with the EQ a lot on both halves of the sound. Rolled a lot of the low end off. And then as I started getting into it, it started, in a sense, reminding me of a clav, but just not that sound. Just more percussive, more funky. And this is what we came up with. I'm gonna find some record for this to go on. I promise you I am. This is acid piano. I went through something some years back on the road. And if you've ever been to some of my shows, you've heard the story, where I went through a hard time in Kentucky. Had a hard night in Kentucky. And I wrote a song based off of that experience. Now, when I was developing the piece, the more important side of the song was the start and the finish. The trouble was in the middle, but the softness and the gentleness of how the story started and how the story ended was more important to me. So that's where the target was in developing the right sounds and choosing the right sounds to make that record work. This piece fulfilled that. This particular sound fulfilled that. I took a hybrid EP, which is built in, did a couple things to it, added the spin effect, added a chorus to it. Again, I love playing with verb and playing with delay, but I play with the EQ a lot on this one as well to kind of reshape how the sound feels. This one is called Kentucky. And see if you can just hear all of those features. Hear how deep the verb is, how sporadic the delay works, and the chorus within the patch. It's a lot of space to this one. The board gives you all of that. Don't just settle for a standard Rhodes or a standard EP. Take them, expand them, use the features within the board to help you support the picture you want to paint. That's the key.